Today we're going to talk about raking. No, not that type of raking, although now I've got like 8 huge piles of leaves I've got to go clean up after this video here. But we're talking about raking on guitar. I'm going to show you 3 ways you can use this raking technique on guitar. And the raking technique, this really can give your solo a lot more character and just add a little spice and flavor to it. Now, the first way we're going to go over what you kind of just heard there, the traditional raking technique. You probably are already familiar with that. Of course, I'm going to show you some close-ups and how to pull that off. It's pretty simple if you have never done this before. Now, the other 2 types of rakes that I'm going to share with you, those are really interesting. So let's get right into this lesson. Of course, hang around for some guitar chat at the end of the video. So that's what I deem as the traditional way of raking, and it's actually very simple. I'm going to go through this with you like step by step if it's your first time raking on guitar. And again, we're not raking the yard, we're raking on guitar. Yeah, I got some work to do today. The technique itself is simple, however, it does involve multiple things going on at the same time. But again, I promise it's very simple. So what we're doing here, and I'm going to demonstrate this again step by step, a few things going on. Okay, so one, we are playing notes across typically just 1 fret. That's how a lot of guitar players will perform this technique. So that simplifies things, but you're doing some things with your picking hand as well at the same time. A couple different techniques with that hand. So the first technique you're going to use with your picking hand is kind of like a sweep pick, meaning you've got just a kind of a fluid motion with your pick going down or up, however you decide it. Most raking is done with that downward motion, that down pick though. You can upstroke, and we'll get to that in the next part here, but typically raking is done in that downward motion. So think of sweep pick, where you're just kind of letting that pick fall or glide down those notes while you're only playing notes across 1 fret. So not a lot going on with the fretboard hand here, okay, until you get to the end and you can throw in whatever lick like you heard me play earlier. Now, the other thing I'm doing with my picking hand is I'm also palm muting those notes as well. So as I'm just picking downward in that fluid motion, I'm palm muting those notes, and all we're doing, again, all we're typically doing, some guitar players will add some other notes or whatever, but we're typically just fretting that 1 fret there, whatever fret that may be, to give us that sound. We're not really playing notes per se, okay? So let me demonstrate. Just listen to just the simple pattern here. So I'm going to go through that again, but we're going to add a little bit more to it. But real quick, what we're doing here is I am basically just raking across the 5th fret here on guitar, okay? And I'm starting with the A string going to the B string. And you could start with the E string if you want. If you want to just rake a couple of notes, maybe rake the D and G and B string to start with. But again, just sharing what I'm doing for this particular riff here or lick. I'm just raking across the A through the B string. And of course, I end on that B string because I've got a little lick that I go into right after that. And that's the beauty of raking. And we'll play that slowly as well. But that's the beauty of raking. It kind of gives you that intro into that next lick that you're about to play. You're going to have some stuff going on there, some more notes you're playing or some bends or whatever. It kind of sets the stage for that, making the lick in its entirety more interesting. So listen to this. I'll play through this part. We'll expand a little bit on that. I'll play through it very slowly for you. One thing I didn't share earlier, and I should have, is I also kind of roll my finger when I'm raking in this downward motion across one fret. I'll sort of roll my finger as well. You don't really have to do that, okay? I do that just out of habit because as I'm playing, like if I'm sweep picking, you kind of roll the fingers so that you don't get string noise. So I'm just kind of used to doing that anyway. But you'll notice I'll slightly roll my finger, and I'll play it one more time for you. I'll roll my finger across that fret as I'm raking each string. That plus the palm muting really helps prevent any unwanted string noise. Now the fact that you're palm muting though, that's probably going to eliminate most of any string noise that you would have anyway. So just play around with that. There's not really like a die-hard right way to do this. There's the way that's right for you. So just play around with the principles that I'm sharing with you on raking here and just see what you can come up with. Let's play one more pattern. I'm just going to go a little higher on the fretboard here and play this pattern here. So this time, same strings, A through B, I'm raking across the 12th fret. Same concept, okay? Same concept here. We're not really doing anything different here. We're just raking in a different spot. One thing I will say about the raking and in regards to where you're raking at, again, you're not really playing or you're not articulating notes as you rake. This is very important about raking. You're not really picking those notes out. You're not articulating anything, but you do kind of want to be in the same key, okay? So meaning if we're playing notes across that 12th fret, we're raking those notes rather across that 12th fret, then we're playing notes this is going to fit in the key of, let's say, E minor. Well, you probably don't want to rake across the 13th fret with all those strings. Although we're not articulating notes, it's probably not going to sound very good. It's just going to sound a little bit better raking across that 12th fret, or maybe even the 14th until you get to that B string and so forth. Again, this is something that you'll want to play around with and just see where you can take this. It's a really cool technique. Again, this is an awesome way to church up your solos, as Joe Dirt would say. All right, let's move on to this second method of raking. I call this precision raking, okay? Unlike the traditional raking technique where we're just kind of, fretting across one fret, we're playing raking those strings rather across one fret. And again, every guitar player is different. Some may use one other note and then rake across that one fret, okay? In other words, if I were playing, or if I were going back to the first pattern that we learned, maybe they start on the 7th fret A string, but then they rake the 5th fret of the remaining strings there. Okay, so you can do that. I don't want you to think that, okay, well this is the only way you can rake. It's got to be across that same fret. No, that's not the case. But again, the pattern, the raking pattern, the process here, it's not quite articulated, okay? Meaning it doesn't really matter if those notes have clarity because we're wanting that raking technique. Now, raking with precision, we do want a little bit of clarity, and this is almost where, well, not almost, you're actually playing a sweep arpeggio or a sweep, you're using the sweep picking method. Now, remember, raking in general, you're sort of doing a sweep anyway. You've got that fluid downward picking motion where you're not picking out each note, you're just kind of letting that hand, that picking hand, glide through those. So, applying the raking technique, which involves palm muting, okay, I'm going to play this little arpeggio here, and I'm going to rake this arpeggio. So listen to this, I'll play this very slow. In this particular case here, we are starting on the D string 14th fret, going to the G string 12th fret, okay, B string 13th fret, then E string 12th fret. So what I would want you to do is just practice this pattern right here. Apply the raking technique, which again, we're kind of just palm muting. It's really a palm muted sweep pick, but it's the raking method, if that makes sense. So follow me here. I'm going to play this really slow. Now, I would say just practice that over and over and over until you get it down. And the beauty of this is we're just raking, or sweeping rather, one way. We're down picking this. We're not bringing it back up, okay? Because the idea of the typical raking method, typical raking technique is to rake to go into something else, okay? So we're not playing the typical sweep arpeggio here. We're raking that arpeggio and then going into something else that's going to have a little bit more character and maybe a little bit more melodic. So practice what I just shared with you and then start to add some little things to it. So let's see what we can add to this. Cool, so now you can take that method anywhere on the fretboard, okay? Now, in this case, of course, you need to know the notes that you're playing here. It's not as simplified as just the typical rake where we're going across one fret there. You want to play the notes that are going to fit your solo, okay, or fit that pattern. So just play around with that and well, let me see what else we can come up with here. Cool, so I was kind of mimicking what I played in the beginning of part 2 here, the precision raking. Hey, I think I remembered what I played this time. All right, that said, let's move on to the third and final raking technique here. This is an interesting method of raking and it's kind of fallen back on the traditional way of raking, but you notice the difference here. We're actually using harmonics. So we're raking harmonics. Now, the one thing that I do differently here is first, well, two things. First, we're playing the harmonics, right? So that's different. But the other thing here is I'm not palm muting. And you'll notice that on the first part of what I played earlier here, I started with an upstroke. The reason why I did that, because I had this cool riff in my head, this cool little lick. I'm like, what if I did the upstroke on the harmonics and ended on like a lower note, kind of make it into a lead / rhythm type thing? And I'll play that again slow for you. But first, just practice this right here. Now, I said I don't really use my palm. I will sometimes lay my palm down to mute strings if I don't want to hear something, okay? And that's just something, I subconsciously do that now. Once you've been playing guitar for long enough, you'll find that you subconsciously do certain things to eliminate sounds or notes that you don't want to either hear or you don't want that to carry over, okay? So I don't do that all the time, and it's kind of hard to explain when I do, because again, it's like I don't even think about it. But just understand that whenever you don't want to hear a note, or you want that note to cut off, or you want to kind of muffle it, you can utilize the palm muting. So see, palm muting is not just for playing those heavy metal riffs. You can use it to silence notes as well. And that's why palm muting rules. Now let's take that upstroke. Let's go back to just the upstroke on the harmonics across the 7th fret. And I'm just going to kind of play that little riff that I played earlier, or the lick rather. Now we can do just the upstroke on that, or we can go down, okay? We can do the down pick on the harmonic, and we can go back up like we were practicing earlier. So we can do both of those simultaneously and go into the riff as well. I've got one more I want to show you, but just want to clarify and reiterate that there's no wrong or right way to approach what we're doing here. I just want to show you the techniques that I use and I want you to be able to take that and make it your own and do your own thing with it. So let me share this last one. So this time, instead of across the 7th fret, we're going to play or rake the harmonics across the 12th fret. So listen to this. This little lick here is very interesting, and I'll kind of break it down after you hear this. What I did here was I raked the harmonics across the 12th fret, starting with the A, going all the way through the E string. However, my single note that I play after that, that's not part of the rake, is actually back on the B string. I think I'm playing the 10th fret there. So what makes this cool is we're adding a little bit more technical expertise, if you will, to the lick here. It's a little bit more technical because you're raking down, and then typically you would start playing your lick on that string that you stop the rake on. Remember, when we started playing this the first time around in the traditional raking, we raked strings A through B, and of course we stopped at B and started playing the lick at B, okay? Here, we're raking all the way A through E, but then our lick, our single note lick, actually starts on the prior string. So you're raking all the way through, but then we're going back to that B string. So this is something that's really cool to practice, and it'll kind of help you get out of that little rut there. So let's go through this piece by piece. I'm just going to play this slowly and kind of play it out for you here. So again, I wanted to share that last one with you, and we're going to get to our guitar talk here, okay? But I want to share that last one with you because it just shows you that there's no rules here. You can rake all the way through, but it doesn't mean that you have to start your lick, the remaining part of the solo, on the string that you end the rake on. You can go back to another string, and it just adds another dynamic to your guitar solo. So just play around with this method and see what you can come up with. Using methods and techniques, and this is our little guitar chat here, which we always love these, but using techniques like the raking technique, this just helps you expand even further. A lot of times, myself included, and I'm really speaking to myself here, I get caught up in playing kind of the same type of licks and riffs over and over, and sometimes it can be difficult to break away from that. And I have to remind myself that, hey, there's some techniques that maybe I haven't used in a while, and raking is one of them. Now, I came up with this video idea, well, while I was outside raking. This time of year, we're in February 2021, we've got these 2 big oak trees in our yard, and oh, they just rain leaves down. I could like do a Slayer spoof on raining leaves, that'd be kind of cool. We started raking the yard, and I'm like, you know what? Babe, grab my foam. I've got an idea. There's a technique on guitar called raking. We're gonna do a video. So that's how I came up with this idea today. And I'm so glad though, because I really, I hope this video helps you. I hope all my videos help you. Don't knock over my coffee mug. I don't know where my guitar stand is. Anyway, so I want to share this type of stuff with you though, because it helps you and helps me as well expand. Again, we all get into those ruts, whether it's writing riffs or playing guitar solos. It's real easy to get caught up into, running through the same patterns over and over and over. And, part of that is really good. Part of that is actually awesome because, repetition is how we learn. It's just like working out. If you go into the gym and just do 1 or 2 reps and then you don't go back for a week or 2 weeks, you're not going to grow like that, right? So guitar is the same way. Repetition is great. Repetition is awesome. So I don't ever want you guys to think that, okay, well, I'm playing the same stuff over and over. Well, you're just getting better at that, okay? So that's one way to look at this. However, The flip side, again, is like, okay, I'm playing the same thing over and over and over. Yeah, I'm getting better, but I want to expand. So I kind of want you to break up your time. Maybe you play the same stuff over and over 70% of the time, and maybe you use 30%, the other 30% of that time to expand, okay? And then as you expand, well, that kind of becomes part of your norm, part of your repetition, okay? Here I am talking about raking, you know. I'm gonna be raking a lot more probably over the next few days because I'm having a good time playing around with this technique. And again, I really haven't used it in a while. Again, I really hope this video helps you. I hope it helps you kind of break out of that little creative rut that you might be in. And guys, leave me any questions you have in the comments. And real quick before you go, don't forget, if you don't have my free practice guide, you can grab that in the description of this video. I've also got the links to my guitar courses. I've got 2 metal guitar courses out there. So all that's in the description. Guys, that's really just an awesome way you can support what I do here. And I appreciate that, of course. But again, leave me any questions you might have about raking or anything in the comments below. And let me know if this video helped you. Lastly, please make sure you like this video because YouTube likes it when you like the video, and so do I. I appreciate the channel growth here. It's been awesome. And make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Guys, I will see you on the next video. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it metal.